Punisher Soviet issue 6 sees Frank watch the police and EMTs converge on the chopper crash from the hills, having escaped with Pronchenko's 3 sons and Valery's body. Frank tells the men to dig him a grave, and when one of the sons gives him some lip, he shoots him in the head, forcing the other 2 to dig with their hands. Frank tells them to make sure it's deep and long enough as he unloads Valery's gun. Soon the boys finish and bury the bodies, told to kneel in front of the grave. Frank kills the remaining 2 sons, leaving Valery's weapon on the grave as he leaves. Later on a Sunday night at the Cape, Frank infiltrates the senator's seaside home. Remembering Zenaida told him Pronchenko wants power and influence on a different level than what he already has. Power over a US senator and possibly US president. Zenaida says that the president sits on certain committees like NASA and defense, and Frank knows that this is about campaign money in exchange for the senator selling out his country. But the woman says that the level these men are on is beyond countries. Zenaida says that the meeting will be where Pronchenko tells the senator what he really wants, and probably thought she couldn't handle knowing about it. Frank asks how she does know about it, but puts 2 and 2 together, knowing that the woman is sleeping with the senator as well. He wonders what will happen if Pronchenko was to find out about that, but she knows that it's a moot point, since Frank is going to kill her. Entering the Cape's lighthouse, Frank works his way up the top, confronting the senator and Pronchenko, and telling them both to stay seated. The senator demands to know how he got past his men, and Frank said that what his men learned, he had to learn the hard way. He gets Pronchenko to dump his gun on the couch as the senator asks what he wants. Frank says that he wants Pronchenko, since 30 years ago he sold a Soviet airborne unit to the Mujahideen, getting them all killed or tortured, or both. Frank says he might need to narrow down that though, since it happens so often with Pronchenko. The senator wants to know what this has to do with him, and Frank says that a man named Valery Stefanovich had an idea for Pronchenko and his sons, but he's used them up already, so the senator will have to fill in their positions. The senator doesn't know what all this talk about Russian soldiers means, telling the 2 men to go away and fight their battle elsewhere. Frank tells Pronchenko to bind and tape the senator's mouth closed, as he begins thinking of the 5th Company and Valery, but he keeps his mouth shut since he knows that not even in a million years Pronchenko would understand. Producing a knife, Frank tells the mob boss to skin the senator, reminding Pronchenko that he thinks he knows how to do it, since lots of the 5th Company suffered the same fate. Pronchenko begins to cry, pleading with the Punisher not to be forced to do with this, but Frank just listens, giving the man time to exhaust all hope. Frank knows that the man will want to live, and soon Pronchenko gets to work, skinning the senator alive, but 15 minutes into the work, the senator has a heart attack and dies. The bloodied Pronchenko pleads Frank to let him stop since he doesn't know what to do, and Frank knows, since he's never done anything himself. He never has gotten his hands dirty, and he lets others die for his business, telling the man that he is just rear echelon. After it's all over, Frank sends a tip to the FBI and local law enforcement, telling the shell-shocked Pronchenko to tell them that the Punisher made him do it, just to see how far that will get him. Later in New York, Frank walks down the street, knowing Pronchenko's operation soon fell apart with their leader deemed insane by the courts, and sent to rot in a jail cell for the rest of his life. Frank enters a bar, sitting and ordering a vodka, telling the bartender that this is his first drink since 1976. The bartender thinks Frank is about to fall off the wagon, but Frank says that he's doing it to honor a guy he helped out with something. The bartender asks if he was a friend of Frank's, but Frank says that they didn't really know each other all that well, not knowing why he helped the man, but guessing he just knew how Valery felt. Downing the vodka, he tells the bartender he doesn't want another, paying for the drink and taking his leave. Punisher Soviet issue 6 ended Garth Ennis's most recent entry into the Punisher stories in a very satisfying and gruesome way. I thoroughly enjoyed watching Frank take revenge on the man who got what was really one of his only friends and a kindred spirit to the Punisher himself killed, but I love that he didn't break his promise to Valery and ended up giving Pronchenko a fate worse than death. The violent skinning scene near the end of the book was definitely up there with some messed up things that Frank has done over the years, but the payoff was really damn satisfying and probably more terrifying than Frank actually killing you. I'm going to give this issue a 9.5 out of 10.